America. I hope this evening offers you rest, as hopefully you have already attended church in the physical world today. If you haven't, I hope you can hear us from the mountains where the still waters of the Rio Grande flow. We are broadcasting every Sunday. Soon, this sure house will be built. And we will hold a church service that never ends, for it will be open 24 hours a day and operate 365 days a year until the Lord himself comes back from heaven. May Jesus Christ find us in the church when he returns. My fellow Americans, keep your hopes high for the erection of the office of the coupon as a new addition to the Department of Interior of the United States. Through the passing of Congress with the Token of Appreciation Act. After those quick announcements, let's get to the purpose of today's sermon and why we are kicking off this new series of What is Love on the Honey Trail. Today is March 16th, 2025, and I heard a little bird this morning chirp a tune while sitting in a tree. Here is what it was singing. The church, way down south, in a little big town called Estero. The bird flew all the way to the Rio Grande River just for thee to see. The churches are giving a sermon about John 3:16 on March 16th. Before this bird flew away, it said Psalm 61. As we open our Bibles and turn to John 3:16, let us read it out loud. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. Immediately on the honey trail, we will run into a fork on the road. And what's up in the chat? The Ham Sammy Man, and I don't know the Abyss now. What's up, y'all? Well, let's get to this honey trail sermon. So we're hitting a fork in the road here, pointing us to Romans 5:8 and 1 John 4:9. Although let's examine this verse for deeper meaning. For God so loved the world. Why would God love the world in the first place? Well, he did create it after all. Similar to something that we as people make an item with our own hands. Whether it be a house that we put together, hammering each nail or screwing every screw, to put every piece of wood in order to build a structure. After we have built whatsoever may be accomplished, we sit back and appreciate what we've done. I'm sure love will set in to the heart of any person, no matter if you're a citizen or an illegal immigrant. any person means any person. Pam, can you hear me? Is it Pan or Pam? Because any person means illegal immigrants too. Hashtag read the Fourth Amendment, or I'm sorry, the 14th Amendment. Now, if we were to act like God, to love the world, would be to love someone other than ourselves. It would be to love someone outside of our family. As the world is filled with believers and non-believers, sinners and do-goods, yet even more than a friend, the stranger are we to love. Even the enemy we are also to love. Next, the verse says that he gave his only begotten son. Imagine you yourself giving your one and only physical birth son to be a sacrifice for all the people in the world. I haven't had a child yet, and I would say it would be hard for me to do, especially since I made the child with my seed. I would love that child, as we discussed earlier in the beginning of the verse, as God is in action. Let's continue in the verse. That whosoever believeth in him should not perish. Knowing how wild and free this country of the United States can be under the Constitution, we comprehend that it is very easy to perish within the jurisdiction of the United States. Rather, the perishing occur from lack of money, resources, or of knowledge. We do know that we can die or be removed from making a situation better or more beneficial for that separate jurisdiction of the church. If we do it only as the straw man person. However, with the establishment of religion person, of the entity in the fictitious business world, of the state as an irrevocable trust, abiding by the law of the First Amendment of the Constitution, all things are possible with Jesus Christ, who strengthened me. The free exercise thereof and establishment of religion that no law prohibits. All the stars align when we combine the Holy Bible and the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. As we see the end of the verse in John 3:16, but have everlasting life. So the next time you hear of the fountain of youth, know everlasting life is better because you found it. You can use it now. Like with using the Constitution daily to keep yourself lawful. No matter how the politicians try to change the lesser laws of the states, counties, or in the feds, you don't have to worry. If we go back in time, looking at chapter 3 of the book of John, we'll locate this we'll locate this character, Nicodemus. Nicodemus called himself a rabbi, which, in my opinion, a rabbi is a title of a man, like the Pope or a Christian. All are simple titles of nobility, as in establishment of religion. This chapter is about these two figures speaking with one another at night. Since Jesus said, "Call yourselves not a rabbi," we must have two different entities here. One representing the Jews as the rabbi, and the other representing the Christians as a Christian. Just a believer in Jesus Christ, who is which means there is no other human being with a title who is over us. Unlike the Jewish or Catholic religions, showing the true depiction of freedom. Now, before we conquer this fork in the road on the honey trail, let's remember that little birdie said, Psalms 61. Turn over there in your Bible and read along. As we begin the verses, we'll see an inscription on the wall stating, "To the chief musician upon Neginiah, a psalm of David." Verse 1. Hear my cry, O God, attend unto my prayer. Here we pick up the honey trail, going in two directions with a fork. The first way is Psalms 64:1, and the second path is Psalm 86:6. Although we will continue in chapter 61 of Psalms, verse 2. From the end of the earth will I cry unto thee. When my heart is overwhelmed, lead me to the rock that is higher than I. Verse 3. For thou hast been a shelter for me, and a strong tower from the enemy. Then verse 4. I will abide in thy tabernacle forever. I will trust in the covert of thy wings. The word written on the wall here is Selah. And on to verse 5. For thou, O God, hast heard my vows. Thou hast given me the heritage of those that fear thy name. The honey trail will appear again, heading to Psalms 86:11. We will continue to verse 6. Thou wilt prolong the king's life, and his years as many generations. Psalms 21, verse 4, will be another shoot off of the honey trail. Yet, verse 7 is next. He shall abide before God forever. Oh, pray, oh, prepare mercy and truth, which may preserve him. The honey trail will launch off to Psalms 40:11. However, let's finish this psalm with verse 8. So will I sing praise unto thy name forever, that I may daily perform my vows. It sounds very similar to what we covered with John 3:16. Verse 1 of Psalm 61 talks about prayer being involved with our actions. Verse 2 is covering the jurisdiction of prayer. And it goes to the end of the earth. Then look here. If we do get overwhelmed, we have a rock on this earth that Jesus will lead us to if we are overwhelmed in this world. As a rock is made out of sand, water, and pressure, or heated up and cooled off, so is the Bible, the Constitution, and the efforts of others to go against another person. That will cause an establishment of religion person of the Constitution found in the 1st, 4th, and 14th Amendment. Now make sure you read those as well. However, to be higher than myself or oneself, aka the straw man. As I use the person of the irrevocable trust instead of my straw man person, I carry myself differently than before. Representation of the Lord will begin to grow out of you. Thoughts, mindsets, actions begin to transform into that of the Lord that is higher than mankind. Verse 3 reveals to us key words that are shelter and strong tower. How is the Lord a structure? Through the irrevocable trust person. As the IRS EIN is used just like the IRS Social Security number is used for a person. They both have 9 digits. So you don't have to be yourself. You can be the new creation in Christ. Since that new person is being used instead of the old straw man, and no law prohibits the free exercise thereof, I'm sure enemies will think you are huge, like an unbeatable figure. Some will probably think it is unfair. However, 100% legal in the courts. Verse 4 describes the shelter even more. As David in this verse says, he will abide. He will live in the tabernacle, which back in those days, the tabernacle was the church. And he said forever, meaning he isn't going back to the old ways of doing things as himself. There is security in this new person, much more than the straw man does. Then we come to another very important word, and that word is trust. David will trust, not has trusted, yet he will trust in God. The activity of trusting and continuing to do so, as God's wings are covert. The writing on the wall states Selah, which leads me to believe this is the end of the prayer. And David begins to give reasoning for why he said this prayer. In verse 5, I would imagine that the vows will most likely be talked about if we took the honey trail marker to Psalms 86:11. Your challenge is to explore that verse on your own and look for more clues of the honey trail before I catch up. Notice, a heritage has been given with the trust. Verse 6 talks about prolonging a king's life. That is a lowercase k in the king's life. So that is in reference to a human life and men actually being a king on this earth, as Jesus is King of Kings. In verse 7, take a look how gold and silver or money isn't mentioned in the preservation of a king's life. The key components are mercy and truth. Check out in verse 8. All of this adds up to performing this thing daily. Vows sounds a lot like points on a trust document. A way of life has been preserved through the ages, all the way into modern day. Did David freely exercise an establishment of religion by performing his vows daily? I'll pitch my camp here on the honey trail and see you on the next episode. Go ahead of me and explore the markers of the honey trail that we covered in this program. And if I don't see you, America, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Who is the true man? Hashtag the first trust and bank.